If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 317 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Olaf Mulberg of Irish MMA media, Graham McDonald, as we talk about an absolutely huge week in the world of mixed martial arts. Two new Irishmen with belts, some good results, some bad results as well for Irish MMA, but overall a fantastic weekend. A big UFC fight, we had a PFL, we had an interim Bellator heavyweight title fight, which I didn't realise was an interim Bellator heavyweight title fight until they got in the cage, or else I did and I just forgot. But anyway, we will get into all of that. But first, let me give a shout out to our sponsors, Manscaped. And fellas, how's your beach bod treating you? Manscaped is here to ensure your post-quarantine body is ready for the wild. Don't be the guy at the beach with a bear rug on your chest, and if you grew some quarantine man tits, the least you could do is make sure they're hairless. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. And I'm actually going away this week for the first time in a while, and I'm going to need my Manscaped with me as I get a couple of days away. I'm up in Dublin, and Manscaped is dedicated to people like me and Graham to help you level up your body grooming game. They have forever changed the grooming game with the Perfect Package 3.0, and that kit comes with the Essential Lawnmower 3.0, which is waterproof, cordless, body hair trimmer even, and a ton of other liquid formations to round out your grooming routine. This is the best trimmer on the market for those of you in need of a chest shave. Their third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. I actually had the worst haircut of my life. I wish I had just taken my Manscaped to my own head and get it, but anyway, that's another story. You can
you still can.
No, I probably fucking should. It's so bad. You can adjust settings to the length you like, and you can stay on top of it with almost no effort at all. You can even trim an arrow pointing to the promised land if you're bold enough, which neither of us definitely are. Be sure to use your crop cleanser body wash to keep your hair and skin healthy and fresh too. Inside the Perfect Package, you'll find the Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, an anti-chafing ball deodorant, and moisturizer, because we know how painful chafing can be when you're wearing your bathing suit all day. You'll also have the Crop Reviver Ball Toner, a testy toner that's designed to give you a pep in your step. So subscribe to the Perfect Package and you get a new refill for your Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer delivered to your door every 3 months. And for a limited time, subscribers get 2 free gifts: the Shed travel bag, which I had out today, and I was filling it with stuff, which is $39 in value added, and the patented high performance boxers. So get 20% off with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com and free shipping. Do yourself a favour and use the right tools for the job. So that's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Trim your chesticles with the besticles. I don't know, that's the second week I've said that and it still doesn't feel right. But anyway, where to start, Graham? Where to start? Mixed martial arts in Ireland. It's been a tough couple of years, I suppose. You know, we'll have Conor McGregor coming up in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk loads about that obviously next week with the coverage starting this week. I've actually, if you sign up for Patreon, I have the rewatch of both McGregor versus Poirier fights coming on Tuesday and Thursday, I believe. So sign up for that. But you know, everyone knows Irish MMA and where it kind of came from Conor McGregor to go worldwide, with Cathal Pendred coming afterwards, and you know, Chris Fields and Neil Seary and Paul Redmond and Norman Park and Aisling Daly even before that, as she spoke about so well this week over on Twitter and stuff. And we had, you know, Artem and everyone coming after it as well. But it's been, you know, since the death of João Carvalho and, you know, the coronavirus, obviously we've had very little MMA and a very, very hard time in the world of Irish mixed martial arts over the last few years. Obviously with McGregor kind of losing his fights as well and not fighting that much and going to boxing and things. But this weekend especially, the main event Cage Warriors 124, the main event of Cage Warriors 125, to see two Irishmen coming out holding the gold. I know we're unbiased journalists and all here, Graham, But it was nice to see, wasn't it? It was just a nice thing to see two Irishmen holding that gold, doesn't it? As you especially as someone who's covered Irish MMA probably before anyone, years and years before me, it was nice to see it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. You mentioned there it's been like what 2011 I started Severe MMA, so it's been 10 years. And one of the first things we did was Cage Contender 14. We did a uh little like mini documentary on Paddy Houlihan and Owen Roddy, and Owen McColgan, or not Owen McColgan, Joe McColgan was was fighting, I think, James Heelan that night in one of his first amateur fights, if not maybe even I'm not sure if it was his first or one of his first amateur fights. And he kind of got that moniker from that, of like the SBG hunter, from around that time. And he was kind of like, it was kind of like journey that we followed him on all the way. And that definitely gives it a bit more. I think you mentioned on the podcast with Jake that, like, for a minute there you were kind of celebrating like a fan, and that's rare these days when you've been watching as many fights and covering as many fights as me and you have. And it definitely, it's very hard to stay unbiased in circumstances like these.
Like, I feel like I'm pretty good at staying unbiased, to be honest. And I for obviously for Irish MMA, Irish fighters doing well and getting better is good for us, and we try, to talk honestly about how maybe to get them to the very best more than other countries, maybe, I suppose, because we are closest to them, and obviously that is our focus of coverage. But still, if they take the right step, we obviously say it. If they take the wrong step, we say it as well. So that's kind of always been my feeling. But I haven't spoken to Joe.
I don't really mean the bias in terms of of that, though. I mean in terms of, like, being more happy for like having that kind of moment of yes, of I think it's maybe an Irish thing as well. Of Irish are very prideful of any kind of sport. People start women's hockey. People were proud of that for when we were winning at it. Like when we beat England in the cricket, people were into cricket all of a sudden. You know what I mean? People just like to see Irish people do well. And when you've obviously been following these guys for a long time as well, it's a bit more special when you see them kind of get somewhere that maybe it looked like they might not get at one stage.
Yeah, well, there's actually a lady from just down the road from me on that Irish hockey team, so I have to be a fan of them, and I've always been a big cricket fan. Everyone knows that. But anyway, it is true. It is true, I suppose. But I think we have been, and I suppose this is a different conversation for another day and a longer conversation. But with MMA, the way I suppose McGregor broke onto the scene, us as people covering the sport in Ireland have had to be very, very unbiased, and even more unbiased than people across the water, or else we would have been like called out for it and called, a McGregor fanboys in and outside of Ireland. Even though when you watch other sports covered in Ireland, there is lots of, if the Ireland soccer team are playing, like, they talk about wanting them to win and they cheer them and they're happy afterwards and all. Whereas if we did that, we'd be kind of castigated for it. But I won't lie, I did for a second after Joe Colgan won that fight. I was very happy, because I was like, it wasn't only that it was an Irish lad winning. And after I spoke to him during the week, and I spoke to Joe before, but never in like, what was it, 25-minute interview or a 20-minute interview or whatever it might be like that, where he just speaks so candidly and honestly, and not in a like a bravado-filled way, or not talking shit, or not promoting a fight or anything like that. It was actually kind of the opposite, even of doing that at times, which I really like.
He's just a really normal guy, you know what I mean? He's just a normal guy. There's no bullshit. He's not trying to say he's this, he's that. He's not trying to call anybody out. He's not trying to put anybody down or get in their heads. He's just doing it for the love of the game, and doing it while he's doing other things. It's not like everything to him, but he just enjoys it, and wants to go out there and prove himself and see how far he can go.
And he also does it in a way that I like very much. The jab, the beautiful, clean striking, the game planning. He talked about his fight IQ and said that was one of his best attributes to me, which, anyone who listens to this podcast knows me talking about jabbing and fight IQ and stuff like that. It's what I love in MMA more than anything else. And for him to go out and have a perfect game plan, to say it on the podcast and do exactly what he said. I went back and listened to it word for word almost. He said exactly what he was going to do, and he did it. I
think his jab and his all-round striking and his all-round game in general was the best it's ever been. He rose to the occasion. It's a Cage Warriors title fight is a big fight. It means everything when you're fighting for it. And he went in there composed and slick and put everything together. And, you know, it was an absolutely brilliant performance against a guy who's, you know, he won the belt and defended it in Cage Warriors. He's not a joke by any means. He's a good guy, and he big brothered him out there.
Yeah, he really did. It was one of those where it wasn't just a good win and he outpointed a guy, or, you know, he even he out fight IQ'd him. You know, it wasn't just that. He destroyed him. Like, Aggie, I thought realized early that Joe was slightly better than him, and he tried to take the gas out of Joe. He tried to push him against the cage. He tried everything he could to kind of stay in the fight. But I've said it many a times before, and I said on the podcast I did with Jake on Patreon, if people haven't heard it yet, but I've always spoken about something clicking for Joe, you know, and we've spoken many times about Joe's journey from fighting, you know, Tom Hogan, which Graham, you could mention about maybe that how good of an amateur he was, to Peter Queally in his second fight, to, you know, Mason Jones, Jai Herbert, and everyone in between, Mehdi Bin Lakhdar, in one of the fights one of the best fights ever in Cage Warriors. He's taken that tough, hard road to get to where he's gotten to, and where you have now at this end point, and I'm not saying this is the end point, but this is a end point, is a fighter who's better than he's ever been. All that work, all the wins, all the losses have made him the fighter he is today, and have made him prepared and ready to win that Cage Warriors title. You know, we constantly talk about fighters, you know, progressing and getting better and becoming better fighters, and learning with each win or each loss or each training camp, and changing up the way they fight to become better with all of that and putting it all together. And Joe McColgan has done that. He's living, breathing evidence of how that works. And for me as well, that was part of it. That was part of seeing it. You know, we remember, you know, hearing about the Queally fight and how he won it, and everyone kind of being a little bit shocked. But and then all the fights after it as well. And for Joe, like, you know, he took a year out at one stage, and after the Mason Jones loss, it was a big setback, and everyone thought, okay, well, he's, you know, and Joe kind of spoke himself about how he has a job and he works full time and everything, and MMA isn't his be all and end all. He literally said if they asked him to fight for free, he'd just do it because he wants to do it. And for him to still be able to go out and still be able to get it done, and now, you know, be on the verge of a couple of big fights in Cage Warriors, and also not be too far away from the UFC as anyone who holds a Cage Warriors belt. Brilliant stuff, and brilliant for his team as well above an FAI, isn't it, Graham?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you know, obviously, you know, we've seen Cage Warriors titles for Irish guys before, but for some of these teams that are winning them now, we'll obviously get on to the other new Irish champion in a few minutes. But for these teams, you know, they've put in a lot of work into these guys and a lot of hours, and, you know, took them from very raw, walking into the gym, not knowing anything about MMA, to, you know, being a Cage Warriors champion. That's a big achievement. It shouldn't be sniffed at. Yeah,
no, absolutely, 100%. And that is something which, you know, we've discussed it before and kind of debated it with, you know, Conor McGregor obviously leads a lot of what has happened over the last few years in Irish MMA. And, you know, his staying at the gym, being loyal to the gym, not going overseas to train and stuff like that, has been a thing that other people have followed. Like, you know, people follow everything Conor McGregor seems to do in Irish MMA. And, you know, whether that's always a good thing or a bad thing is up for debate, I would say. But we are now seeing that, I suppose, pay dividends. And as you mentioned, you know, we'll get on to Ian Garry as well. He spoke about that, you know, taking inspiration from Conor McGregor. The reason he's fighting is because of McGregor, and it's interesting that it's, you know, we kind of have past the McGregor era of fighters, you know, that the Pendreds and the Paddy Hewlins and all them who have retired and moved on to coaching and things, and now we have, I suppose, the era which they created afterwards, you know, which is very, very interesting, very kind of cool for us to see, and it makes us, I suppose, feel a bit old as well. But before we move on from Joe McColgan, like, what do you think is next for Joe? Do you think he's going to be one of these guys who is happy enough to kind of see it out in Cage Warriors for a while, or, and not just him, but is he going to get one of these fights? And do you think one of these fights where he kind of wins and it's a bigger fight where he's the champion, defends his belt, and then the UFC are looking at him? Or do you think he's one of these guys maybe the UFC aren't looking at as much?
Well, I'd say the UFC are in no rush to sign him. You know, he tell you himself, like, he's not young, he's not undefeated. But if they're going to put on a show locally, like, you know, and people can travel, like if they put one on the UK and people from Northern Ireland and Ireland can travel, I'd say there'd be a lot of people going over. But if they were to put a show on in Ireland or in Northern Ireland, obviously it would be there'd be a serious campaign behind them, as there always is behind the Irish guys. And you know, that would be his route in. But if they're not going to be putting on a show locally in the next, you know, year or two, it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to get signed. But you know, if he keeps winning, keeps putting on performances like he did, you know, 2 nights ago, you know, there'll be no denying him then.
Yeah. And do you know the thing about this as well? Sometimes we move on too quickly, and, you know, maybe we shouldn't have even been talking about that today, what the next step is, because this step is a big step. You know, winning that belt, as Joe talked about himself, you know, when I talked to him, this is a huge step for him. It's like, he probably aimed for this over the last few years and wanted to get there and had belief in himself that he had the ability to win it. But, like, it's all grand not having that, you know, and thinking you're going to get to that position, but to actually go out and do it against someone as good as Aggie Sardari. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows I've spoken about Aggie before in the couple of previews we've done with Brad as well, and I rate him as very highly as a fighter. I think he has the ability to go to the UFC and do well there. I think he's a well-rounded fighter, and Joe, he really did make it look easy. No, you'd almost forget, thinking back on the fight, he not only beat him up on the feet, he ended up submitting him as well. You know, he stopped all the takedowns. When Aggie Sardari tried to take him down, Joe ended up on top, did a great job on top, landed shots. And, you know, I talked earlier about, mentioning previously about things clicking for Joe. I thought his striking, the pop on his striking last night, looked like something I've never seen from McColgan before. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and if he can keep that going, and if he can put finishes with it, if he can put submissions with it, if his takedown defense keeps looking like it looked in that fight, like, I won't talk about the future because I just said I wouldn't, but he's going to be a very, very good fighder, and he's going to keep.
Another thing, just before we move on from that fight, when he was defending the kind of takedown attempts, or you know, little kind of breather periods against the cage, he was landing some very nice elbows and forcing the head position to be high, and kind of basically taking away all possibility of ending up on bottom. And it just, everything he did, as you said, it was smart. It was, everything clicked. He just seemed to have an answer for everything, and was just better everywhere. You know, he just even if he had it ended up on his back, I wouldn't have been worried. You know, I think he rose to the occasion. He just looked, you know, the best he's ever looked. I said it before, but you know, sometimes the pressure can get the guys on these occasions as well. And it definitely, like, you know, this guy's fought before for the title twice, so he has a bit more experience than Joe in terms of that. But Joe didn't seem phased at all. Like, you know, just absolutely brilliant performance. Absolutely delighted for him.
Yeah, very, very, very crisp. I thought everything he did was very crisp, and 100% fair play to Joe, and congratulations even to all the lads in FAI as well. So the other man, obviously, to win the Cage Warriors title this weekend was Ian Garry, and, you know, it's obviously been a big week for Ian Garry and everyone around him. We'll get to that in a second, but, you know, let's talk about the fight first, and let's talk about the performance, because that's the main thing at the end of the day. You know, we can talk about the drama, we can talk about everything else, but the fight is the main thing. And what a fight it was from Ian Garry. I thought it was a phenomenal performance. I think a big thing coming into the fight was Jack Grant's ability on the ground, and how Ian Garry would deal with that if he was forced to go into that realm. And he dominated. He really dominated there. Jack Grant had like a Suluev stretch at one stage, but Garry did well there. Gary's leg was kind of caught inside at one stage as well. He managed to get it out, and he landed shots as he was getting it out. He almost submitted him as well. I think it was in the second round with a dart. He had kind of that standing head and arm choke as well at one stage. He was looking for a 10-finger choke late in the fight as well. He was almost caught in a leg lock late in the fight, but managed to get out of it. He didn't look in trouble at any stage on the ground. And now, that's before you even get to what happened on the feet. I thought midway through the second round, Jack Grant kind of realised he was woefully outmatched on the feet, and he probably knew coming in. And I think he tried to play into what has happened this week, and he tried to talk to Ian Garry, and he tried to bring him out of his game. And Garry was just like staunch in and headstrong in his inability to listen to what Grant was saying, or maybe not to listen to it, but to take on board what he was saying, or to be affected by what he was saying. He just kept coming forward, and I thought as well in the corner, I must say Paul Hughes, I thought did a fantastic job. He kept roaring at him, concentrate, don't get drawn in, and he didn't, and landed some beautiful stuff. I thought his jab all night was absolutely fantastic. That left high kick he landed early was brilliant as well. He said in the interview afterwards, and Cage Warriors actually didn't interview him directly on TV or on Fight Pass afterwards. And I know people probably say, right, the UFC was starting, but how many times has the UFC clashed with other things on UFC Fight Pass before? You're telling me they couldn't clash for 3 minutes while the UFC was doing an intro to do an interview with Ian Garry? Bullshit. They should have done it. But anyway, he spoke afterwards. Lebel, it's up on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And he said he was injured coming in. He said he'd an issue with, I think, his right leg coming in and he couldn't throw it. So with that said as well, an even better performance. Win 5 rounds as well. Looked fit and his cardio looked fantastic. Even in the 5th round. I think the 5th round was the one the closest of them. But I had him winning every round. I think all the judges had him winning every round. And I think one judge had him winning round 2, 10-8. If I'm not mistaken, that's the one where Jack Grant was kept calling him on and just eating a shitload of strikes, and where he had almost had the submission as well. But an all-round brilliant performance. You know, if you we'll talk about everything else in a second, but if you hadn't heard anything else, if you hadn't heard the drama, if you hadn't heard everything and just seen minute 1 to minute 25, very, very good performance, I thought. What did you think of Ian Garry's work, or in-ring work even, or in-cage work this weekend, Graham?
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can separate the two, the drama and the fight. I think, you know, the adversity that he had to overcome, the mental battle and the culture shock of not having all them people around you, being injured, just everything is like, it's a huge part of the fight. It has to be. You know, he's never really dealt with a title fight, 5 rounds. You know, this experienced guy, no Chris Fields or nobody from his camp in his corner. That's I don't think you can separate the two. I think, you know, considering all of that, the performance is absolutely brilliant. You know, he never looked in trouble. I think he got hit with one shot that kind of clipped him, but he was he's kind of off balance at the time. I think it looked worse than it was, and I think they even had a little chat about it. And he said, "Oh, it was a nice shot." In fairness to him, we could hear a lot of what they were saying in that corner. But I think you know, he did brilliantly considering everything that was going on. You know, there's a lot of problems like that can cause a lot of doubt. You know, injuries is one thing that, you know, he maybe hasn't dealt with, on top of all the other stuff as well, and not having one of your tools in your arsenal and not being 100% secure on that leg. Like he said in the interview, he tore the leg, so I don't know exactly what the extent of it is, but like, it doesn't sound good. And he managed to overcome all of that. I didn't even notice. You wouldn't have even noticed in the fight that he had an injured leg. So, you know, absolutely brilliant performance. And, you know, 7-0 Cage Warriors champion. I think he was talking at the end of the interview with Ida Lebel that, you know, the UFC is next. I think he needs to wait, but, well, he doesn't need to wait, but I think like the best option would be to wait a little bit and, you know, I'd get a couple more wins in Cage Warriors, a little bit more experience, sort out all the behind the scenes stuff, and, you know, you don't need to be in this mad rush. Like, I think he's destined to get there at some stage. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Like, because of all the changes and everything that's happened, I think that's a great point. I think he definitely needs another couple of fights in the UFC, or in the Cage Warriors, sorry, and especially considering what we've seen recently with the matchmaking. And we'll talk about that later with Joy Herbert and other things as well. Like, if he goes into the UFC immediately and they throw him to the Wolves and it's his first fight with a new camp or whatever it might be, that's a tough one. But yeah, look, overall the performance, we can get to that, but the performance from Ian Garry, very, very good. And you know, you are right, you can't separate what has happened outside from what has happened inside, but to just analyse the performance, I think was a fair thing to do first. Obviously, what happened outside the cage, if people have, I suppose, been living under a rock or whatever, I suppose the rumours started coming out during the week about Ian Garry having split with Team KF. No one came out and officially said anything. Obviously, myself and Graham, and I suppose other people as well covering the sport, our duty is to ask the questions, try to get someone to say something. It's a story, when someone is fighting for a title in the biggest, league in our region, and they break up with their coach the week of the fight or the week before the fight. Us as people covering the sport, that's our job, to tell that story and to get that story out and get both sides of it out. And I think everyone would probably agree we attempted to do that. We tried to do that. I spoke to Ian Garry, obviously. I asked him those questions. Obviously, he didn't want to answer those questions at the time. Later, he released a statement saying that his team had left him, was basically what he said. We haven't heard from Team KF yet. So, I don't think you're going to make a statement for them, or I'm not either. Let them, release their statement or speak as well. And I'd be happy to speak to them and get their side of it if they wanted to do that as well. But, that's from, obviously having spoken to Ian, and obviously after the interview, a lot of people talking about it, it kind of came from there. But it would have come out anyway on Saturday night as he walked to the cage without Chris Fields and without Carl Pindred or Tom King. And, he had, Brad Martin said it on the commentary that he wanted to have his, I think Brad Wharton called her his manager, but I think it's his girlfriend as well, Leila Annalee, in his corner. And Graham Boylan, as according to Brad Wharton, Graham Boylan didn't want that to happen, wanted an official corner, and was threatened to call off the fight. I don't know, I hadn't heard that until Brad said it on the commentary, so that's very interesting. And then he got Paul Hughes to step in. Obviously himself and Paul Hughes, good friends down through the years, both on the same Cage Warriors road. So, for people looking from the outside to see Paul Hughes in that corner,
Cage Warriors title fight victories as well.
Yeah, with John McColgan. Yeah, he was. But yeah, I thought that was a good thing to see Paul Hughes in the corner. But make no mistake about it. If you're from maybe outside of Ireland and you don't know Chris Fields that well, I would suggest he's like the Matt Serra equivalent of a corner man. He's loud, boisterous, never stop. You hear him all the time.
I think he's much more sensible though than
more sensible. Yeah, but to not have him there, even watching it for me, to not have him there and to look at Ian kind of walking by himself to the cage, it was weird and sad in equal measure, I think. And to see him afterwards when he got the title, we talked about Joe McColgan. I'd even be probably closer to Ian than I would to Joe. I've interviewed him for every single one of his fights, from his first professional fight to this one. And I would say, him with one or two other people would probably be the closest fighters I would be to around. And I didn't have the same reaction, and I suppose maybe because I not knew, but I thought he would win and I was expecting it more than the Joe one. But also it felt like he didn't enjoy it as much, and he kind of said that afterwards in the interview as well. I'm sure he would have loved to have Chris Fields there with him. I'm sure Chris Fields would have loved to have been there. We don't know what happened. Who's at fault, who's not at fault, I don't know. And I don't, apart from them, and maybe they wouldn't even agree, no one probably knows. So it's what has gone on is the question everyone's asking. I don't know. That's not my story to tell. But it's sad to see where it is at the moment. We can talk about what's coming next, but did it feel weird to you watching that fight as well as it did to me?
Yeah, it did. When he was walking out, he kind of looked a bit sad or something. It looked strange, and I think obviously it's a sad situation. He's been with them since he started. He's been training under Chris and Tom and all the other guys at KF, and it's a lot of work went in together, a lot of hours, a lot of talk of this moment, I'm sure as well. I think they were the coaches at the team KF were talking for a lot of years from the very start about him being a champion, him being the next big thing. And we hear that from a lot of coaches, but you hear that from a lot of coaches of a lot of gyms, but I think that they truly believed it, and obviously it seems to be coming to fruition. He's well on his way to the world's at his feet basically at the moment, and right, what is it, 10 days, a week before a title fight, and this happens. I'm sure everybody's sad and disappointed, and nobody's happy with this involved in the situation, from Ian to the team to even Cage Warriors and anybody who's a fan of Ian. He's all the Cage Warriors Golden Boy thing. Obviously Cage Warriors, like he talks about it himself. Cage Warriors are going to push the guys who are, doing well, who can talk well, who can fight well, who have support behind them already. It's promotional sense. And I'm sure Graham Boylan and all those guys didn't want this to happen either. So like this is a situation that nobody wanted to happen, and hopefully it can be resolved. But you're thinking like if it's happened so close to a title fight, something must be seriously wrong there.
Yeah,
it's disappointing, and it's
very
sad.
disappointing. Yeah, it's very, very sad. I think like everyone, we haven't heard anything, I suppose, from Team KF officially. But I can't imagine they weren't sad watching that. We talked to a load of our people over in the Patreon group, and everyone there was kind of like, God Almighty, it's sad to say, but it took away from the moment. And the one saving grace, I suppose, I think for Ian Garry, if he can get everything set and everything together, and either get back together or find a new team and keep progressing, hopefully this, I don't think this will be Ian Garry's the biggest night of his career, and that's, I suppose, the one saving grace. I think he will move on. I think he will do bigger and better things. Hopefully that's with Team KF. Hopefully they can get it back together. By the sounds of it, I don't think it is, but weird things happen in MMA, and hopefully they can get it resolved, because I think everyone was in it for the right reasons. We heard them speak a lot about the Cage Warriors route, and I suppose, if you look at, say, SBG, and Chris Fields and Tom King obviously broke away from SBG, and they talked about like the original kind of vibe of SBG when we had all that drama there, what was it, 2 years ago or whatever it was, and going the Cage Warriors route, getting to the UFC, whereas the SBG fighters, as we see, there's no SBG fighter, SBG Ireland fighter, SBG HQ fighter in Cage Warriors at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. Very, very few in the UFC. They're all going to Bellator, all going that route. And I think KF wanted to kind of go that way, the opposite way, go through Cage Warriors, get to the UFC. And Ian Garry really bought into that, from the interview he did with me a couple of years ago, saying no one wakes up in the morning dreaming of going to Bellator. They want to go to, they want to play for Man United or Liverpool or Real Madrid. They don't wake up thinking playing for Barnsley, and that was the mindset, I think, of him. And to kind of, everyone to be on that same sort of mindset, and then to break up so close to reaching that goal of getting there, and to reach the goal of getting this step to get there is obviously very unfortunate. And I suppose what can you do
at the stage where it seemed inevitable? It was like, I think nobody was picking Jack Grant to win this fight before all the drama anyway. I think everybody in the know knew that Ian Garry was going to win this fight, barring something crazy happening, and something crazy happened and he still won anyway. But we can talk about all this, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it as more comes out and as people talk more about it. But back to the performance, absolutely brilliant, a totally deserved champion of welterweight champion of Cage Warriors after 7 professional fights. Absolutely, it's a really brilliant achievement. 7 fights is not a lot of fights at all in professional MMA. He's gone in there against a guy with 17 wins and 17 wins and 7 losses now.
A lot of experience.
An experienced guy who fought for the title twice already, the Cage Warriors title twice already. And he just went through him like, he beat him everywhere, even with an injury and all this mental torment and going on in his head. He had a lot going on. We talked about it, and he showed he's a different class to I think he's a different class to anybody in the welterweight division in Cage Warriors, and that shouldn't be forgotten in all of this mess.
Yeah, I would argue probably Matthew Figlak is probably the second best one, and he's already knocked him out. So he finished him anyway. I think he knocked him out. Yeah, but wonderful performance from Ian Garry. Hopefully the next step, and it's interesting to see what it does. Where will he go? Could he go to SBG? Will he go to England? Will he go to America? Will he get back with Team KF? I don't know. Hopefully he gets it sorted quickly enough anyway, and he can get back into action and get those injuries sorted out as well. So, but a wonderful performance from Ian Garry, and 100% credit to him. Fair play to him on that. Let's run through some of the biggest results as well. And we'll touch on the other Irish guys. Unfortunately, Decky McAleenan lost in the second round via rear naked choke against Stevie McIntosh. I thought it was an interesting first round. I had Decky just ahead until the last maybe 15 to 20 seconds around. I think Stevie landed some lovely shots there, managed to get the fight to the ground in the second. I don't know if Decky was still hurt or not. I think the commentary kind of said it, that he stumbled a bit as he was going back, or maybe not stumbled, but looked hurt as he was going back in the first, and maybe wasn't fully recovered, although it was halfway through the second round where he ended up getting submitted. But a good win for Stevie McIntosh. And Decky in that lightweight division, there's a lot of moving parts in that division and a lot of fights in that division as well. And picking up 1 or 2 more wins, I think he'd be right back in there in that division as well. And a great win for Kieran Mulholland as well, who picked up a guillotine choke in the second round after getting badly hurt in the first 10 seconds of his fight against Connor Wilson. So a very, very good win for Kieran Mulholland.
Very important win as well. Obviously 1-2 isn't a better record, isn't a great record, but 0-3 is a very poor record where you might even be getting another fight in Cage Warriors. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, so a great win for him. And, we'll probably be seeing him again in Cage Warriors. And he's down at that 125-pound division. I believe he fought up at 135 before that. So, great win for Kieran Mulholland.
Definitely take confidence from that bit of momentum and, hopefully keep improving.
Yeah, 100%. Other standout performances from 125. We'll go through the 3 cards quickly here. Myself and Jake went through 123 and 124 with a fine-tooth comb over on Patreon. So if you want to get even more of a breakdown of them, head on over there. But for me, Gerardo Fanny got a lovely flying knee KO over Conor Hignett. He had a good performance. He didn't have a great performance in his debut in Cage Warriors, but having watched him before that fight, I knew he was a good fighter, and I think he showed it here. So a good performance there. James Hinden beat Paul McBain by a rear naked choke. And for me, one of the best performances of the weekend, William Gomez defeated Tobias Harila by a unanimous decision. Just kind of ran circles around him. Harila non-stop, just in his fucking face for the whole fight, and Gomez proving that forward pressure doesn't win you fights. Just picked him off from the back foot. An absolutely fantastic performance there. We saw Scott Malone getting a good win there as well, and Scott Pedersen as well over Marcus Lewis. And 124, Justin Burlinson got a fantastic win after a couple of years out against David Baer. He could very well be next in line for Ian Garry. Very good performance. He might have a couple more. We'll see what Ian Dean does, but a good win there. Nathan Fletcher, rear naked choke over Brian Bouland. The Hardwick brothers had 2 very good wins. The King of Middlesbrough and the Prince of Middlesbrough going in. Harry and George. Steve Amiable as well. I thought he performed well with a unanimous decision. Jesse Urholland, if you haven't seen this, he was brilliant. This guy, he's only 7-0 now, beat Aaron Khalid. Did you saw that fight? Did you? What a performance.
Yeah, he absolutely, he came in there and destroyed him. I was definitely not expecting that. But, I think as you said on the Patreon podcast with Jake, Ian Dean has a habit of just pulling these guys you've never heard about in nowhere. And I think Gomez is another one who I didn't even know who he was, and he went in there and beat a highly rated guy as well. So yeah, fair play to Ian Dean and getting these guys in.
Yeah, Ian Dean, an absolute genius, just brilliant. It's picked up Dominic Wooding as well. Got a lovely win over Dominic Hardy. I'd say Dylan Hazan versus Josh Reed was almost the only poor fight of the whole weekend, and Josh Reed has been in fucking barn burner after barn burner, so we'll allow him one. But yeah, very good, very good. And Luke Shanks got into the final. He needed a break. He did. Luke Shanks got into the 125-pound final to face Sam Creasy, who beat Aaron Abbey the night before, and a very good performance. Just looked really, really strong in that one. Also in that card, the first night, Matthew Bonner with a surprise win over Matthias Frederick. A really, really good performance. Yeah, it's funny. This was one of those fights where there was a lot of top position for Bonner, but I went back and watched a bit of this fight, having thought that Bonner was kind of dominating it. I'm not sure. Matthias Frederick had landed a good few shots and Bonner wasn't landing too much, so I think it was a closer fight maybe than people reckoned. There was a point deduction as well for Bonner, so maybe that brought it back a bit, but it mattered not, because Bonner got the rear naked choke in the 4th round out of 5 and won the middleweight belt. Big blow for Matthias Frederick, 38 years of age, I believe. So his UFC dreams are, maybe over, unfortunately, after that. But I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch and seeing that fight again. Very good fight. Another rematch we saw, Christian Leroy Duncan against Will Curry. really good performance from Christian Duncan. Will Curry, a very good athlete, but I just think Christian Duncan is a little bit ahead in his progression at the moment. Good performance from Gittins. Mick Stanton looked fantastic against George Smith. Never stopped, and Smith got tired and he ended up finishing him. Same can be said for Keir Harvey. I'm a big fan of Manny Akban, and he got the win over him there by arm triangle in the second after losing the first round and a half of that fight, or the first half round of that fight even. O'Neil Brown as well, good win. Adam Cullen out of Paddy Pimblett's gym over in Liverpool, and Rory Evans defeated Jimmy Fell as well to kick off that card. So overall, unbelievable. You know, I think the Cage Warriors 1, 2, 3 card, the prelims ended in like 33 minutes, the 4 fights. It was an unbelievable night of fights. Overall, I think a fantastic trilogy of cards. And you know, with fans possibly coming back in the UK now, I hope they do another trilogy. I'd love to do a trilogy in Ireland. Come over here and do one, maybe, and we could go to it and be in attendance. I'd love to see it. I imagine even covering it at home, it's a lot. But I would love to attend one. And you know, I must mention here as well before we move on to the other cards, fair play to, you know, great coverage, Ian O'Neill, Sean Denny, and all the lads for the fantastic coverage. Jake as well, obviously joining me in the podcast, and Andy Stevenson as well. Some great stuff this week from the boys over in Severe MMA. And thanks everyone who's listened and watched the interviews as well, even though my Joe McColgan one got half fucked up. But however, yeah, brilliant week in Cage Warriors, and hopefully there'll be another trilogy, and hopefully we'll see them coming back again with another big one. Right, Graham, let's talk a little bit about... I'll run through Bellator first, and then we'll run through PFL, and then we'll talk about the card that matters, the UFC one. This Bellator card, honestly, I barely watched it. It was a fucking bore. It was... Oh, my God. The main event, Valentin Moldavsky is the champion, now the interim champion of the heavyweight division. Took a decision over Tim Johnson, boring as shit. No one cares. He's a good fighter though, and you know, if he fought Bader or someone like that, I think it'd be a good fight. But you know, it wasn't that boring either. Tim Johnson brought it, but I didn't care, to be honest. It was one of those ones. I just watched so many fights by this stage, and the PFL was on at the same time. I think the Anthony Pettis fight was on at the same time, and I just kind of switched to Anthony Pettis fight and was only half watching it. But Liz Carmouche got a beautiful knockout, shades of Honda Housey against Betch Correa in that one. Just came all out banging from second one and got a 35-second knockout over Kana Watanabe and gave her first loss of her 11-fight career, so a good win there. The Outlaw beat the Jury as well. Sydney Outlaw choked out Miles Jury.
Very good win.
Last 15 seconds of the fight.
Besides, like, you know, he lost to Michael Chandler, you know, 3 fights ago now. Before that, he's on a serious streak going back to 2016 where he lost a split decision to Gregor Gillespie. So, you know, he's still one to watch. You know, he's been around. He's a very good fighter. He's still only 29, and he's just after beating Miles Jury. So, you know, he could be making a run at maybe at some of the upper echelon fights.
Yeah. It was a good performance too. Like, he's, as you said, like, Jury is a guy. I don't think he's the best fighter in the world anymore, but if you beat him, you're a good fighter. I think it's kind of that way.
And if you finish him as well, I think that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. And I think Jury kind of, in fairness to him, he did go for it a little bit towards the end, but you know, and fair play to him, he ended up probably getting choked because of that, but. All in all, I thought it was a good performance from Sydney Outlaw. Daniel Weichel got the split decision over Keone Diggs. I actually missed that when I was watching the PFL fight. Christian Edwards, this guy is 5-0 now. He fights in Jackson Wink. And apparently he does a lot of training with John Jones, has modelled himself on John Jones, and you can kind of see it a little bit, you know. He throws that front leg knee kick. He's an intelligent fighter, nice jab, very athletic. But Young is one of these guys who is not the best fighter in the world maybe, but he is a tough matchup at 205 pounds for someone just on their way up. I think just because of his strength and his toughness, and he's technically a pretty good fighter as well. So I was very impressed with that Christian Edwards fight. Not maybe a fight you go back and watch and think it's the best fight in the world, but for someone who had 4 fights before that to get 15 minutes under their belt, I thought that was a good performance. John De Jesus and beat John Teixeira, and yeah, Son back. Actually, I didn't see the other fights, but I saw the Son back fight. a very good performance. He's 15 and what now in his career. And what do you think of Sarnbach? Like, he's opening up the card here, 155 pound division.
I was just going to mention that there. Yeah. Why is he opening up the card when there's guys who are 0-0 and 2-0 and 1-2, 1-1? I don't know what's going on there. You know, he's a guy who's coming off wins over Stapes, Pimblett, you know, Morgan Charrier, Terry Brazier, Bobby Lee, and he's opening the card. I don't understand what's going on there.
I think Sarnbach is one, and Sarnbach, obviously Kiefer Crosby's accent for some reason, but I genuinely think he's one of Bellator's best fighters, you know. And it doesn't seem like they know it, maybe, or something like that, but he won this fight.
But like, what possible logic is it for him to be before a bunch of, you know, Bellator's prelims are notorious for just being complete, you know, local guys who they just threw together. And then Sarnbach is, you know.
Do you think it's because they wanted it?
15-1 now.
Do you think it's because they wanted it at a time where people in his home country could watch it at a good time? I
think everybody in MMA is used to watching it a little bit later, but maybe they were trying to catch a casual audience. But you could be trying to pull up the stream or whatever, and you've missed it by the time you've got it.
Remember that happened?
Like, I don't think anybody would be expecting the fight to be on so early either.
Yeah. Didn't that happen with a Kiefer Crosby fight for us once? It was like, what?
Yeah, well, they had it listed on the card in a different place, and then when you tuned in to watch it, it already happened. Ugh.
That was before we started complaining about Bellator, and they got shit fixed a bit. Like, in fairness, I must say, right, and I don't give myself compliments often, but my complaining has achieved a lot of shit over the last few years in MMA. I must say, judging shit, Bellator being on television and stuff, even PFL a little bit being on television, I've complained about that. Daniel Cormier tonight in the broadcast basically saying, shout out to Sean Sheehan, you know, the you don't get 5 minutes for an eye poke. Game changer, pod god. That's why they call me the pod god, you know. But anyway, Sarnbach, put him higher up the card the next time. But yeah, good performance anyway, though. All around, fantastic stuff from Sodden. Kiefer Crosby, as we speak about him, actually, he's fighting Georgie Carcanian in his next fight, I believe. I don't think Bellator have reported it yet, but Kiefer came out and put it out, and I believe they were looking at that fight. Whether it's official yet or not, I'm not sure. But big fight for Kiefer again after losing his last one to Charlie Leary. A tough fight, you know. So if he wins that, it'll be a big bounce back for him. But if he's looking at 2-0 if he doesn't, or 1-2 even his last two if he doesn't. So big fight for Kiefer. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on in that. And I believe Brian Moore as well. Can I say who he's fighting? I was told that he's fighting, but it hasn't been announced yet. Should I just say it or not? No, I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. Name him. Will I actually name him here? Will I do it? Jared,
sure, nobody listens to this shit anyway.
Jared Scoggins, I believe he's fighting. That's what I believe he's fighting, Jared Scoggins. But anyway, let's see how it goes. Bellator, yeah, that was a Bellator card anyway. PFL then, as again, I saw some of this, missed some of it. Jamel Jones got a very quick KO. There was actually a 10-second KO on Bellator as well. I probably mentioned it there somewhere, but that was a lovely KO. Marina Moroz got a win here. Hinan Fehea. But the big ones, I suppose, were Larissa Pacheco, who got a first-round win, and I think she's the number 1 seed now in that 155-pound women's division. Capoloza got a lovely punches and head kick KO in his fight with Mo Darius as well. Nice ground and pound finish from Denis Gostilov. Lance Parmo went out of the competition after he lost his fight to Kabulev. And then Anthony Pettis lost a split decision to Hauschman Fio. Close fight. Very, very close fight. Anthony Pettis, I've never seen him trying so hard to be old Anthony. Like, it looked like Anthony Pettis acting in a film as Anthony Pettis. It was just a weird fucking performance. I thought he won. I haven't gone back and watched it with a fine-tooth comb, but
yeah, you know, vintage Anthony Pettis. He goes in there, throws mad shit, wins the fight, and then loses the decision. Yeah. It's vintage.
That's exactly Anthony Pettis. That's him. But yeah, he actually didn't fight that bad. I thought the other lad did very little apart from the third round. But however, and in the main event, then we had an armbar. Kayla Harrison just went in. and made Cindy Dandois look even worse than Cindy Dandois makes herself look by fighting, and that's a fucking big thing to do. She made her look so bad. But Kayla Harrison is 10-0 now. Let her win her next, 2 fights to win this title. Get this £1 million, and then I want to see her at 12-0 move to the UFC and straight away fight Amanda Nunes. And I don't want to hear any of the shit about she's not going to get paid enough or anything like that. Put her straight into a title fight, pay her enough money, get that fight going. That is a huge fight. I want to see it. I want to see her fight in the UFC. I want to see her fight Amanda Nunes. People might say, okay, she's not experienced enough. She hasn't fought the people who you would want her to have fought to fight Amanda Nunes. If you can't see how good Kayla Harrison is, you're blind in one way, right? And in another way, then
is rushing her in there though like that? Is rushing her in doing her at a service? Why do you have to?
You have. I think you have to. Chris Weidman beat Anderson Silva when he was 9-0. She's going to be 12-0 going to the UFC. The people she's fighting, right, are not good. But who else in the UFC is going to touch Kayla Harrison? There's nobody. Okay, she might get a test against a Holly Holm or something like that, but she's beating those people. Let's be honest, she's beating those people. Is she going to beat Amanda Nunes? No, I don't think so. But does she have a chance against Amanda Nunes? Absolutely, yes, she does. She has world-class grappling.
Do you not think it's better to bring her into the UFC, give her a couple of nice matchups?
No.
Why not?
Promote this. Promote it. Make it what it is. Make it champion of the world, Olympic 2-time gold medalist. If she loses,
but she'll still be all of that if she gets a couple of favourable matchups in the UFC. Get used to the UFC.
UFC, but make it big. UFC debut. You're winning the title. You're going to fight for the title. If she doesn't win it, do that. You can still do that. Build her back up. No one will say anything about her losing to Amanda Nunes. Look at Henry Cejudo. He lost to Demetrius Johnson. They built him back up, and then they had obviously the close fight, which
if
she
lost.
She
goes out there and gets absolutely destroyed by Amanda Nunes, for example, and maybe she'll never be the same fighter again.
Nah, she won't. She's tough. Kayla Harrison is tough. She's cocky.
A lot of tough girls have been destroyed by Amanda Nunes. So.
Kayla Harrison is different. I'm telling you. Kayla Harrison. And Amanda Nunes, I think, would beat Kayla Harrison. But Kayla Harrison would win rounds against Amanda Nunes. She would take her down. I think she'd win around, maybe the first 2 rounds or the first round anyway. I really think it's... And she's much bigger than her. Like, Kayla Harrison is a genuine 155-pounder. Amanda Nunes is fighting at 100, and she's going to cut down, obviously, to 145 pounds to fight Nunes. But Nunes is basically fighting 125-pounders and 135-pounders coming up in weight. Like, Amanda Nunes had to put on a load of weight to get up to 145 pounds. She's a big size and strength advantage. 2 gold medals in her back pocket. 12 wins in a row by the time the fight happens. Come on. I'm promoting this fight here. I'm not sure why, but I really...
How many fights does she have left? Do you know how many fights she has left on her PFL?
I don't know. I think they do it by season. So she's 2 more in this season. But I don't know. I want to see it. Come on. Have I not sold it to you? No, you're not buying, no?
I'd like to see it, but I think maybe coming in your first fight in the UFC can sometimes give jitters, and then you're in there against Amanda Nunes.
She's a different beast.
I think it's adding to the difficulty of an already really difficult task that could be maybe alleviated slightly if you put her in there with a couple of handy ones that pose basically no threat to her. Maybe.
But sure, look, we'll see anyway. We'll see. Right, let's touch on the UFC tonight, and we'll run through this pretty quickly until the top couple. I'll go from bottom up and give you a couple of results. Damir Hazovic got a good win over Yancy Medeiros, won the unanimous decision there. Charles Rosa got a split decision win over Justin James, who apparently put his whole fight purse to win and then ended up losing, which was just idiotic. Please, fighters, do not do that. Julia Villa got the Queen of Cringe thing after that. She just started crying and then rubbed blood on Daniel Cormier's suit. It was hilarious. But she beat Julia Sterenko via rear naked choke in the third. Marcin Pacheco got a beautiful body kick KO. And also the Dean Truman fight. Who'd fucking beat Dean Truman? I can't remember. Whoever beat Dean Truman got a beautiful... Hardwick. It was Hardwick. He got a beautiful... body shot KO as well. A beautiful KO. Jeremiah Wells with another one, right hook. He beat Warley Alves, which was a very, very good win. His UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken. So, good win there. Ragmanikov beat Prazeres, who was about 75 feet taller than him. But he got the rear naked choke there. Kennedy Njoku, this lad, if there's a man to bet on in play, this is the man to bet on. down 2 rounds again, like he's fight before, and ends up getting the TKO on this against Danilo Marquez. An exciting fighter, not the best fighter in the world, but never say die. You could never rule him out in a fight, and a great win again. And what about this? Fucking what? Who did Jai Herbert? What? I don't know. I can't even speak anymore. Why is Jai Herbert fighting Hinato Maikano? Who did he fight?
What did he do to deserve this?
I have no idea. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I know we have absolutely shit all over the UFC matchmaking before, but Jai Herbert comes into the UFC. They match him with Mark Casey first, tough bout. The match doesn't happen. They match him with fucking Francisco Trinaldo. They match him with Drakkar Klose, and that fight doesn't happen. And then they match him with Hinato Maikano. Why are they giving him such tough matchups? This guy is 10 fights into his career.
They're trying to get him ready for Habib's return.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Like, this is a very good fighter, and you could see him cut from the UFC now after this. Like, just what I kind of I was depressed watching this. I was like, why did you do this to Jai Herbert? There's just none. What did you think when you were watching this fight?
Yeah, on the feet, like he had a couple of nice moments, but you just knew to saw a matchup. You talked about it before. I think we talked about it on the podcast before. It was just another very difficult matchup for him, and I'm always talking about the old days with Joe Silva, but I think back in those days, you know, if you signed a guy, you had a bit of a plan for him. You kind of knew what he was about and knew what you're going to do with him. Nowadays, you're just throwing a guy. The matchmakers are just throwing a bunch of names and say, match these guys, and they just throw a bunch of names together. That's what it seems to me. Like, it doesn't seem to be much, you know, much process behind it.
Yeah, it was just awful. It's a pity, and I hope he gets another opportunity, but the way they're matchmaking him here, they'll probably give him the fucking Dustin Poirier next or something. You want
to throw 12 and 0s or 10 and 0s, 12 and 0s in against fucking Amanda Nunes with no UFC experience. So
well, come on, that's a bit different. Oh, come on, that's a little bit different. Shh. Give me Sean Shelby's job. Yeah. Anyway, look, I hope he gets another run, because I think he's a very good fighter, and I think he has the ability to go a long way.
You know, somebody we were talking about earlier would be a good addition to the UFC matchmaking team. It'd be terrible for Cage Warriors to lose him, but you know, he'd probably, you know, do a much better job at these entry level UFC fighter matchups. 100%. You know. If you just put him on the entry level, guys, your first 5 fights in the UFC are going to be matched by Ian Dean. I think a lot of these guys will develop a lot better.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Give him every division, but only guys with less than 5 fights in the UFC, and then let Sean Shelby and the other lad do the rest of them. That'll actually be brilliant. What do you think?
Because Sean Shelby, you know, there's Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard. In fairness to them, there's a fuckload of fighters and a fuckload of fights, and there's not much time to turn around these cards, but. Like, there's only so much you can do as when you're dealing with such numbers, but an extra man in there who knows what he's doing, you know, obviously Cage Warriors probably don't want us talking about this, even getting the idea out there, because he's so valuable to them, but you know, Ian Dean's been in this game a long time. He probably deserves a bit of a fucking pay rise as well. I'm not sure what he's been paid in Cage Warriors, but I'm sure the UFC.
Not enough.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not enough, and I'm sure he could probably, if the UFC were interested, he'd probably be able to negotiate himself a nice deal. So, for everybody involved, except for Cage Warriors, and maybe for Cage Warriors shows that we watch, probably the quality will go down. But yeah, you know, I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. We've actually talked about this before for over the years, like off record, and I've heard a lot of people say it, but it doesn't ever seems to have. I think there was actually talk a few years ago of hiring in the UFC, of hiring another matchmaker, but it just kind of didn't happen.
I think a lot of the Cage Warriors lads are very happy to be in Cage Warriors as well, though. Just seems like a nice place to be, and fun, and like I think Cage Warriors, more than any other organisation in the world apart from the UFC, understand what they are, you know. And it's kind of a...
Yeah, if Cage Warriors could pay the same as Bellator, KSW and stuff, there'd be nobody fighting for... You know, everybody would want to fight for Cage Warriors.
100%. But what about as well making a little Cage Warriors fight here in the UFC? What about Jai Herbert versus Paddy Pimblett? How about that? 155 pounds.
Yeah, that'd be actually, that'd be a tough entry fight for Paddy Pimblett as well.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly, as tough as we've seen, but maybe Reese McKee and Joy Herbert recently. So he'd probably take that. He'd probably
He would,
if you gave him that as a throwaway, he'd probably be looking at the other guys around him. He'd probably be snap your hand
yeah.
off.
Yeah, for fucking Joy Herbert, God Almighty. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing his next one.
I heard Shimayev's looking for another fight.
Yeah. Throw him fucking both at him. I don't know. You see, Shimaev actually turned down Luke Rockhold apparently, which I'm kind of happy about because I don't want to see him fighting at
I'm
185.
surprised he turned him down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably an easy enough win, I think. Although you never know. Shimaev, like, he's coming off of a bad bout of COVID, like, so. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing him back as well. But anyway, I digress. Tim Means beat Nicholas Dalby. I thought it was a very good performance, a smart performance from Tim Means. And that's not, no disrespect to Tim Means, but that's not always the thing we see from Tim Means. You know, he's a lad that goes in there and throws it all down.
I thought in the third for a second that when he got clipped, I thought, oh, his chin's going to let him down here.
Yeah.
But he did manage to kind of smother the situation and kind of use his experience and smarts to kind of, buy himself the necessary time to. I think he knew he had the first 2 rounds in the bag, so he knew he just had to survive. He didn't have to make anything happen. So I think that was a smart performance in the third round after being rocked, especially when you're kind of, your chin is suspect.
Yeah, 100%. Nicholas Dalby, I'm sure he'll get another fight. I think he's had a good run recently, so he'll get another couple of fights in the UFC. But Andre Fili and Daniel Pineda went to a no contest after an eye pop. Yeah. What about my boy Daniel Cormier's commentary here, where he was like, kept going on about getting 5 minutes for an eye pop, and no one corrected him, even though you don't get a 5 minutes for an eye pop. He did.
At least he corrected himself, though, in fairness.
He did. Sean Sheehan corrected him, and he corrected himself then afterwards, so fair play to him, yeah. But
You're talking about yourself in the third person again, yeah.
Look, the fan god does what the fan god wants. I thought Feely performed pretty well in this fight up until the end, obviously, but maybe they can run it back. Timur Valiev, I thought he looked good against Hani Barcelos. He won the majority decision there over that. Actually, what happened? I missed like the third round of that or something, but it was a majority decision. I'm not sure what happened there, but what happened there, Graham, for it to become a majority decision?
Yeah, I don't know.
Who cares? We've seen too many fights. Tanner Bozer. Oh yeah, this Tanner Bozer fight in. So Bozer was on the ground. He went to get back up, grabbed the fence. Jason or DT grabbed the fence. Who knows? But whatever that, if he did or didn't, it doesn't matter. Jason Herzog touched him as if he was stopping him, but didn't stop him. Let him fight. Then there was a nasty clash of heads between the two of them, and then Bozer knocked him on the feet. So you could take your pick there from the 4 incidents. Fence grab, referee stopping it, head clash, knockout. It was just a bizarre, 10 seconds of MMA. It was like, what is going on here? But my take on it, right, is that, and I'm a big Jason Herzog fan, everyone knows that, I think he was at fault here. When you go to stop the fight, if you touch the guys and you go to stop the fight, then fucking stop it. If you were mistakenly stopping it, go, right, sorry, start again, do nothing. Or, if you need to put in a mouthpiece or say, if you need to give, instructions or whatever, don't grab the cage and then restart him. But don't half stop him. Let him keep fighting, but you've distracted him. And one lad thinks he's fighting, the other lad thinks he's not fighting. That to me was the big issue here. Take nothing away from Bozer, it wasn't his fault. I thought it was Jason Herzog's fault, and, but yeah. What did you think of the situation?
I just think if it was Herb Dean, you'd be a lot more angry.
In fairness, I just have blamed him. So I think it was his fault in fairness, but who knows? Yeah,
it's a tough job, and Herzog's been very good for a lot of years, and he definitely made a mistake here. But in all seriousness, I compared it to Herb Dean there, but Herb Dean has been making a lot more mistakes, and this is a job where everything happens very quickly, and we've seen in the past Herzog being very decisive, so hopefully he doesn't turn into Herb Dean. Basically,
yeah. Someone's made a great suggestion to me over on Twitter that Herb Dean should retire and be like the backstage refereeing analyst for the UFC. I think that'd be fantastic. If there was like an eye poke, he'd tell you what was wrong, he'd tell you if it was going if you needed 5 minutes, or if it was going to a no contest or going to the cards or whatever, maybe even talk a little bit
You
about
could know
judging.
the rules, yeah.
Yeah.
Great to have somebody who knows the rules.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely fantastic. I would love to see that. Plus, he's a terrible referee now, but I'm sure he still knows the rules. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But anyway, and in the main event, Cyril Gagne against Alexander Volkov. If you listen to last week's podcast, I told you exactly what was going to happen here. I said it was going to go to a decision. I said it was going to be a technical fight on the feet. I thought Volkov would give him a little bit more problems with his jab and with his lint, but he really didn't.
I think early he gave him a few problems in the first round, even though I think Gagne won the first round. I think he won all rounds. But I think Cyril kind of figured him out pretty quickly. Like, it was a great performance. It kind of went as expected, as you said, but watching it, thinking about the really top guys in this division, and how hard they hit, and the lack of being able to kind of wear on them and take their power away, and not being really able to put people away. If you're going to be 25 minutes in there with some of these guys like Francis Ngannou, for example, I don't know. I think he still needs a couple more fights before you give him that kind of raise up the rankings. It's kind of like strange to say this right after a really kind of dominant performance where I gave him every round, but there is some real killers at the top of that division, guys who can put you away at one shot, and I think maybe he can kind of raise his game and do the same thing, and be elusive and land his shots, and but Volkov has thrown a lot of volume, but not a lot of big shots. He's not really known as the biggest knockout guy. I think I'm a big fan of him, but I think he needs a couple more fights, and he needs to kind of have a way of he landed much more impact than Volkov, but he's got to somehow add to the impact he's landed to his strikes, or be able to kind of mix in more takedowns, because if he's going to be fighting Francis Ngannou, he's going to need to take away that explosive power, and kind of like circling around and being elusive is not going to do that. So I think although an impressive win, I think maybe the thing I took most from the fight was that he's not ready for the upper echelon.
Do you know what? I totally and utterly disagree. I think Cyril Gagne is a fighter we have never seen before as a UFC heavyweight. Do you know what he is? He's the Dominic Cruz of UFC heavyweight. This guy...
Yeah, but Dominic Cruz is not fighting guys who can hit as hard as Francis Ngannou with a quarter of a punch.
Yeah, but Dominic Cruz is not getting hit. And I think that's what Cyril Gagne is. He's not really... He got hit with one shot in the fourth round here. And okay, against a heavyweight, that can be enough. But he's just not getting hit in his fights. And he's improving all the time. And he's hitting harder as well. I was even talking to Ian O'Neill during the fight. And he was kind of saying the same thing as you were saying there. I need a little bit more output. I need a little bit more variety. And, he could 100%. He could do with that. But I think... And
a couple more fights before you give him that...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But level up. Like, I think if you put him in there now, like... I don't think it's going to end well.
I think we're afraid of what Cyril Gagne is. I don't think we believe that someone can be this good at heavyweight. Honestly, I just...
So if you stick him in there against Francis Ngannou in his next fight, who are you picking?
Cyril Gagne, I think. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. But maybe not. But even if he not, let's say he loses to Francis and he comes back and he fights in 5 more fights. I think this guy is on the road. He might not become it. As we've seen this week, things can happen in MMA and things can change. But I think he's on the road to becoming a fighter we have never seen before in mixed martial arts. And what I mean by that is this athletic...
I think he's on the road, yeah. But I think, if he gets absolutely plastered all over the canvas by Francis Ngannou in the first round, can he recover and be the fighter that he can be if he's given a slow roll?
Would he though? Maybe he would, but would he? I think where he is at the moment, we're thinking, right, he's going to decisions, he's out technique and guys like that. Is it just like he's not good enough to finish him, or is he too good to get hit and he's not taking unnecessary chances in fights and just winning them comfortably over 5 rounds against some of the best in the world. Like, that's... I don't know. I'm not fully behind my belief of what I'm saying here, but I don't know. I think that might be it.
If he does this against some of the best in the world, then yeah. But Junior Dos Santos, what
Volkov is right up there. Like, Volkov is ranked like number 4 in the world.
Yeah, but he's clearly a level below the actual upper echelon of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's true. It is 100% true. But he's still murking these guys in a 5-round, 25-minute just destruction.
Sorry, Volkov I meant there.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling just after watching that fight tonight, and what people said it to me, like, you're the third person to say it to me now, he's missing something. I think he has everything. I really do. I just think, I don't know, and I might be just...
See, I think he can have everything, he's on Team Graham and all that, I think he definitely can have everything, but I just... For one of my guys to be thrown there to the wolves unnecessarily, I think is an unnecessary risk. I see now. You don't want to be shown up. That's it. Well, I think it's just for like, I think he can be a really top guy. I just think, why rush him? There's already fights at the top of the division you can make. Like, people want to watch Francis Ngannou knock out anybody, or you can throw him in there against anybody, and people are going to watch it at the moment. It's not as if you're struggling desperately and you need to put this guy in a bit early. You don't need to do this.
Look, what we need really is Francis Ngannou versus John Jones fights. And Cyril Gane versus Derek Lewis. That's what we need, really. But that's probably not going to happen. But.
Well, like, if you put him in there against John Jones, how do you see that fight going?
Oh, I'd love to see that fight. I would love to. I don't know. I genuinely think Gane is the next level of fighter. I do. I really do. I don't think our minds are set for a heavyweight fighter to be this good.
But you still have like Curtis Blades, you still have Derek Lewis.
He'd destroy Curtis Blades.
Yeah, but you can put him in there against both of them. He has time to improve in between with camps, with time off.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I would agree with you. I wouldn't. I don't think he's going to get the Francis Ngannou fight. Derek Lewis is going to get that, and if John Jones is ready,
I don't even want to see him get a Stipe fight either. I think he probably wins that. But
I'd love to see that fight.
I think he probably wins it, but I think it's unnecessary to do it right now.
Is it, or is it like a good way of moving Stipe out of that conversation for the UFC?
Yeah, well, do they want to move Stipe out of the conversation?
I think they probably do, yeah. I think they've had enough of Stipe now in that upper echelon, the heavyweight division. I think he's actually done a better job for them than most people would give him credit for, but yeah, I think they probably do, especially like if it's at the expense of Cyril Gane, where they have like that story of him with Francis Ngannou's old gym that Francis left, that Brendan Fitzgerald spoke about on the broadcast. So, I don't know. It's exciting times anyway in the heavyweight division. What was I doing there? I think at the turn of the year, what division?
Especially if John Jones actually comes into the division, it is really exciting times.
Really exciting, yeah. It really is. Even like Derek Lewis, I don't think anyone thinks he's going to beat any of the top guys, but he's going to make an exciting fight. Whatever fight he gets. Okay, the Francis Ngannou fight, first fight wasn't great, but I think the second.
In fairness to him, he seems to be getting over those back problems that were leading to a lot of, a lot of cardio problems, a lot of in-fight leaning on things and putting his hands on his knees and stuff like that, and he's lost a bit of weight, and we thought about maybe that would affect him in terms of his suiting his style of kind of waiting and landing a big shot. But he seems to look the best he's ever looked, so he's another kind of revitalized fighter in that division. So yeah, I think the heavyweight division is the healthiest it's been in a long, long time.
I agree. All right, everyone. On that note, let's leave it there. Happy birthday to our boy Harry Kearns. Happy birthday to Cara Clancy as well. Fair play to the both of you. Hope you have a great weekend. Congratulations again to Ian Garry and Joe McColgan on winning the Cage Warriors belts, and Paul Hughes as well. Two belts in the corner for him. So very good. And maybe he'll be the one to pick up the 145-pound belt as well next, because with Harilla losing at the weekend as well, Paul Hughes is thereabouts in that division. So big news for him as well. If you've any questions as well, if you're listening to this, if it's out early, send them over to me. I'm actually gone away, so Sunday I'm going to be recording the Q&A. That'll be out. Probably Monday evening, Tuesday, as normal. Sign up patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. As I mentioned, we have both McGregor versus Poirier rewatches. I did a little podcast as well, talking about a few different topics. Habib, pay-per-view buys and stuff like that. That'll be out Wednesday as well. So loads of stuff coming out, and the Q&A, as I mentioned as well. And obviously, this time next week, we will be breaking down in depth Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 3, which is coming up in 2 weeks from today. I can't wait for that. So thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you all. Great support during the week as well for all the interviews, for all the articles, Cage Warriors Trilogy. And all that's left to do now is give the inspirational quote of the week. A stumbling block to the pessimistic is a stepping stone to the optimist. We'll see you next Tuesday. Or probably Sunday or Saturday or Monday or something.